My name is Kathy Brennan, and I am a seasonal naturalist here at Trail of Tears State Park. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go into our visitor center. And so if you just want to follow me in. And within our visitor center, this is also, it talks about the history of the Trail of Tears. So when we come into the park entrance, into here at the visitor center, you'll see the overview of the park, which shows the trail system, the road system. It also shows you how in relationship to the Mississippi River we are. And so it gives you an idea of where you can go within the park, and it also shows natural features. The Vansel Hollow Natural Area is a special area that, because of the features of an old Appalachian forest, you can find in there. And then Indian Creek is our wild area, which means that it has a special designation that nothing motorized can be used in there, like chainsaws. We have to do everything by hand. So it's really nice. Shepherd's Point is another trail system that we have that ties into the history of the park. So within the visitor center, which is kind of interesting, we have paintings that were done by different Native American artists when the center opened back in the 1980s. But within here, if you come around, you'll find out that the park is, within the building, it's divided up. So in the front half is the history of the Trail of Tears. So it starts out who the Cherokee were, they're a little bit about their culture, and then as you go through the exhibit, you learn about why there was the removal and why it occurred. And then as you go around the exhibit, you get to the far side, and it talks about trails through Missouri. You find out how close they were. So when you came into the park, the road that's out here in front of our visitor center is part of the National Trail of Tears Trail. And so from here, they left, they went to Jackson, up to Ironton, Farmington area, Steelville, and then what we call the 44 highway corridor. They went down to Springfield and then Arkansas and then into Oklahoma. So as you go through the exhibit, you learn about the history, you learn about the principal players, Andrew Jackson. You learn about what the treaty was, the new Etosha Treaty. And the sad thing about this is that with the removal, the Cherokee knew that they had to leave. And part of the reason they left was because it was land acquisition, that gold was found down in Georgia, and that was a huge factor in making them leave. And so it's kind of like when we have hurricanes. People know that hurricanes are coming, they know they're told to evacuate, but they don't want to leave because it's their home, their businesses, and that. So the removal ended up being people that had not wanted to leave, and it was also young and older individuals that were not very in good health. So when they came in to gather them, it was just, they grabbed them and it was just like, here we go. And so they had 13 different detachments. They came through this area. There was a couple that did a river route through, but for us, our history is that they crossed the Mississippi River. And with that, when they got to the river, it was a winter, it was very cold. Winter, they were not well prepared. Kind of like the display here shows a woman in a blanket. They had meager rations. They were on foot or they were in wagons coming along, but they didn't dress in the way that we consider winter clothing. And so with that, because of poor food, the climate of the time of year, there was a lot of sickness. So that's why there was a lot of deaths along the march. And so one of the places, after they came through here, one of the places that they went to was Steelville, Missouri, where we have documentation, and we couldn't figure out why they spent so many days up there. But then we found documentation with receipts that talked about buying caskets. So we know that there was it was a stop that so many people were sick that they couldn't go on further. So, but then as you go through the exhibit, it talks about, as they go into the years further, the land grabbing. But the Cherokee weren't the only ones that were involved, but there were other tribes. So there was a total of 5 civilized tribes, or there were 7 civilized tribes. And so Kickapoo, which was in Missouri, Illinois, tribe was coming out of around St. Louis. The Sox and the Fox came out of northern Iowa. We also had the Delaware, which were also Delaware River in eastern Pennsylvania. But the interesting thing is, like, even the Seminoles in Florida were forced to have a march. And so not only but the Cherokee one was the most notable one that occurred. So as people walk through here, then they come into the other half of the visitor center, which is anything that is the natural history, which is plants and animals. So we do different displays. This one is about the history of the forest and how a tree grows. We also have documentation where we have state champion trees in the state of Missouri. And this is from 1976. So that is why it's called the Liberty Tree, which was kind of neat because we found it in the archives. But also it talks about culture. And so as you go through, you see the seasons. We're on the Mississippi, so the photos that are above show stages of the river that you would see it in. Which is kind of neat, as in the spring, the fall, the summer, the fall, the winter, and spring. So it just gives you an idea of what the river would look like. So as you go through, then the diorama talks about the plant life and the trees that are found here and the animal life. And then we have this amazing mural that's done on this wall. And so if you go to the overlook that's in the park, our big one, this is the view that you're going to get of the Mississippi River, which is one of those places that you can stand and look south down the river, you can look up the river, you can look across the way. And when you look across the way, this is all Mississippi River bluffs. So this is the other side of the banks of the Mississippi that was there millions of, hundreds of thousands of years ago. So this mural, just to see it, this is not really what the river looked like though back in that time frame, like say Lewis and Clark, and even when the Cherokee Indians came across at the river. Lewis and Clark talk about the river being 2 miles wide. So what's happened over the course of many decades, man has manipulated the river so that it's the channel that it is now. It's not what it used to be. So, but then we also have the panels where it shows the different trees. So this is trees that you find in the summer within the park. So it's interesting. And the unique thing about it is that we have a mature forest community, but the thing about it is it's the last remnants of a Tennessee, like an Appalachian forest. So we have the beech trees, the cucumber magnolia, we have tulip poplar trees that you just don't find west of here because you start getting into the hardwoods, the oaks and the hickories from this point on. And then as you go through, we also have native birds that are up above that are stuffed, and so that gives an opportunity for individuals to see those. And then as we go into the classroom, this is kind of our nature study room and and again, we're combining history with it. So natural history, this is what you would find in the park. So we have our snake, our resident snake. We have a spotted salamander as well. But the snake sheds up above are from the bull snake that we have in the large aquarium. But then we also show like what's in the life in the forest. We talk about we show what snakes we have, mammals that are found within the forest, the insect population, birds. We talk about the forest and just in a way that when people come in, they can look and they can touch and feel, they can read about it. We have the animal pelts from the mammals that are on the stage that gives kids an opportunity to pick them up and see what they are up close, kind of thing. It's kind of interesting. A lot of people guess which ones are which, but a lot of these animals that we have, the pelts, people don't really see those on an everyday occurrence in that way. And then on the wall here, what's unique about this is, well, this is one of the detachments that came through. So this is B.B. Cannon. And so Denise, who is our superintendent, is a member of the National Trail of Tears Trail Association. So she was able to go with the association to Washington, D.C. and go through the archives and ask for information during the Trail of Tears. So these are all receipts that were given to B.B. Cannon's detachment at places along as they came through. So when they came out of Kentucky, they came into Golconda, went to Anna Jonesboro, and then what's really interesting is that here's a receipt from Bainbridge, and then this one is from Jackson. And this one has George Bullinger's signature on it, and George Bullinger is the man that owned Bullinger Mill, which is a Missouri State Parks historic site. So it's neat to have these because they're kind of like, it's like looking back in history and seeing what they purchased along those trips when they left the East Coast from North Carolina, Tennessee, and on the way over to Oklahoma and that. So, but it's just another way of like figuring out how that impact was us. And a lot of people come into the park and they go, well, where's the artifacts? You know, what do you have? And it's like, well, we don't have artifacts because when the Cherokee came through here, they just came through. They didn't stay necessarily. So we don't have those pieces of history, that kind of thing. But this documentation is really interesting. So, but again, there's the paintings from the artists that came through here, which are really, really neat to have. And then from here, you can go out of the visitor center and head down towards the river and go to river level at the Mississippi River and see where the Cherokee crossed the river. It's basically just the shoreline. And then you can also go past the Bushy Head Memorial, which is a commemorative site that's here. And then, but overall for the park, the overlook is one of the best places to go to see what the river looks like. But the history of it is very full, and so it's one of these places that we're very fortunate to have. But we're just kind of like, and really for the most part, Trail of Tears State Park is the only state park that's on the Mississippi River of this whole side of the state. They do have the Confluence State Park up at St. Louis, but we're the one that's richer in history and that. So, okay, thanks for coming in, and I hope you get to see us.